Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent for another pick a card reading. So today's reading is a bit of a deep one. It's really exploring the North Node in astrology and in your chart, particularly if you know your chart, in a little bit more detail and a little bit more depth. We tend to think about the North and South Node in Western astrology, the South Node being sort of karmic debts, things that we are moving away from, and the North Node being our life purpose and what we're moving towards. And there is certainly some resonance to that in this reading, but the thing that inspired this reading, which, as you know, is titled Your Personal Holy Grail, the quest of your North Node, is some other stuff I learnt recently about the South and North Nodes by watching a really brilliant astrologer on YouTube called Acyuta-Bhava. He's called Acyuta-Bhava, and his channel is Acyuta-Bhava Das, and I will put the details in my description box below of the name of that channel, because you need to see how it's spelt if you're going to find it if you don't know him already. He's an amazing astrologer who looks at both astrology in general, Western and also Vedic. He mixes in his spiritual practice. He's incredibly well read, incredibly knowledgeable about a whole variety of different sort of spiritual practices and so forth, and psychology, and he's just brilliant. Like, I kind of came across him, and I now follow him and his work and sort of sit there in kind of awe when I'm watching his videos. And one of his videos a while ago, and to be honest, I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was probably to do with the move of the North and South Node into Taurus and Scorpio that is sort of happening or coming up now. If you're seeing this reading when I published it, you don't have to, because it's a timeless reading. But he did a video, I think, around that, if I recall correctly. But in some video recently, he talked about the Vedic astrology understanding of the South and North Nodes, and that derives from a particular mythology which saw the South and North Nodes originally were a demon, a particular sort of elemental energy, I guess, that had somehow managed to get the elixir of immortality, and they shouldn't have got it. And they, as a result of that, their head was struck from their body. So you have the North Node being the dragon's head and the South Node being the dragon's tail. But effectively, it separated the head from the body. And what Acyuta was saying about this, amongst other things, in terms of understanding the North Node and its drives and how it operates in your life, because Vedic astrology is a little bit more challenging about this than the more Western astrology concepts of it, is that Rahu, having become a severed head effectively, is always hungry but can never satiate the hunger completely, because of course the head is separated from the body, so cannot nourish the body. And when you add that to some of the Vedic astrology things that talk about Rahu being about materialism, the ego, and the need for patience, and Ketu being the dragon's tail, being about spiritual desires, renunciation, and so forth, it is that separation, almost a separation of the body from the head, from the living form from the ego and the drives and the sort of consciousness, I guess, that Rahu would show. And so Acyuta was saying, and it was such an aha moment for me when he did, and I applied it to my chart, that there is a degree to which, yes, the North Node, as in Western astrology, is something we're heading towards, but it's like it's our quest. It's like it's our Holy Grail, and we will never fully satiate it. Even if we achieve something in that space, we would want more, because there is something about it expansive and almost holy that we are seeking to nourish and achieve in the world. And I found, when I looked at my own chart and thought about my life, it explained a lot about patterns in my life where things seem to repeat, and some of the frustrations, a particular type of frustration that seemed to repeat, even though it seemed to me that if it had been a karmic lesson, I'd pretty much learnt it by now, because I wasn't creating for others the sort of frustrations that I was experiencing. And so it was sort of like, well, how do I look at this? But once I understood looking at the North Node that way, it made perfect sense. And it was a very liberating thing. And I spoke to a friend of mine who knows her chart as well, and she was sort of thinking the same thing as we talked it through. The more we talked about it, the more excited we got about the fact that this is such a liberating thing to know, to understand. And so I wanted to do a reading about that. It's obviously a collective reading, and so people coming to it will have different sort of signs that their north and south node are in, different houses, different degrees and so forth, different aspects in their charts. But I wanted to do a reading that was about what is this quest, what is that hunger that you're trying to fulfill, and also what is the part of you that in a sense spiritually is renounced in the process of doing it. What's the bridge that could bring those two together, and what would it be in your life to be pursuing this, and so forth. Some advice from Spirit so that you can get as much of it as you possibly can in this life and achieve as much as you want, but also to be able to be sanguine in the face of challenges that are associated with that, because it seems to be so intrinsic to our growth in some way. So that's what the reading is about. What I do want to very quickly say to help you with this beyond the reading is that if you have access to your astrology chart, and there are many online sites that you can go and get your chart sort of done for free. So if you want to, you can go and look into this and put in your sort of birth data and find out where your north and south node are in your chart. Then this probably gives a bit of a sense about some of the ways this will play out, and it would add an extra layer to whatever comes up in the readings that we do here. So just very quickly, going by sign, if you had, for instance, your north node, so the hunger, the drive, the quest, in a earth sign, then you are likely to be seeking out the material side of it in particular, and to be really looking to material outcomes and earthy, grounded outcomes in one way. So Capricorn is likely to be focused on the powers of the world, Taurus on the enjoyment and the security of the world, and Virgo on the structure and the order and the precision of the world, for instance. If you had it in a air sign, so Libra, Aquarius or Gemini, this would all be going towards ideas, philosophies, beliefs, and that kind of thing, reason, rationale, and so forth. Gemini is likely to be particularly focused towards the communication side of things, and that would be a very strong driving force for you. If it was in Libra, it may be about justice and fairness. If it was in Aquarius, it might be about achieving a more transpersonal and larger than life, almost utilitarian approach to things and belief structure around things. If you had it in water signs, then it's likely to be to do with the heart and emotion in some way. So Cancer, it's likely to be around a protective, mutually protective environment, one where family and that sort of thing can thrive. If it is in Pisces, it will be probably about the numinous and the psychic and the spiritual and so forth. If it's in Scorpio, it's probably going to be about intense intimacy, secrecy, depth psychology, all of that sort of thing. And then if you happen to have it in, we've done all but fire signs. So if it's in fire signs, it's likely to be about the ego and the ambition and being seen in the world and creation in the world. So if it's in Leo, it's likely to want to be center stage to some degree. If it is in Sagittarius, it's likely to want to be free and philosophically free and creatively free. And if it is in Aries, it's probably about wanting to be the leader, to be the first to think up something, the innovator, those kind of things. So in very broad terms, if you know that, you get a bit of a sense of maybe where your quest is and the type of energy. The other thing that's worth thinking about is the house that it's in. So if you know your birth time, you will be able to also know what the houses the planets are in. So that very much depends on whether you know your birth time. But the first house, if Rahu, the North Node, is in your first house, then this quest will somehow be about how you're seen in the world. If it's in the second house, it's going to be about values, possessions. Third house, about communication. Fourth house, about family, tradition, foundations, and so forth, and who you really are authentically. Fifth house, it's going to be around creativity, love, or children. It may even be a sign that you would sublimate some of this quest through your children potentially. Sixth house, it will be about service to others and your workday life. Seventh house, it's going to be about relationships of all sorts and how you relate. Eighth house is going to be about really intense intimacy, all the sorts of depth issues, really understanding the world forensically almost. Ninth house is going to be around philosophy, higher learning, possibly travel. There might be a real sense and an urge to travel, particularly if you happen to have Sagittarius North Node and in the ninth house, for instance. 10th house will be around your career and who you are in the world and being seen in the world. The 11th house is around your networks and your social areas. I think many people who get into social influencing are likely to have something like a North Node in the 11th house, for instance. And then the 12th house is the depth psychology, the very private, the very kept to yourself type of side of things. So whatever your quest is would be very private to you, not something that you would announce to the world. So I just wanted to do that introduction because I think it could help for you. What I would suggest is that if you know that, maybe look at that after you've heard your reading and recontemplate your reading in relation to that, because as I say, we're going to have a whole variety of different sorts of North Node placements for people who come to any of these, and what we're trying to do collectively is look at the energies about what that's doing in your life. But it will give you an added level of depth to this if you decide to put that energy and attention into it. So on to the reading. So we have 4 piles to choose from. I'll put the numbers down, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And what I've done is I've chosen the Ace of Cups. I'm using 4 different tarot decks, as I often do with these sorts of readings. And I chose the Ace of Cups because to me it's the most representative of the Holy Grail. So it's not about the emotional side of things. It's about that sort of sense of the Holy Grail, the desire of the heart, the desire of the soul, and the desire of the ego brought together, and the spirit. To me, it's a very good and evocative symbol of that. So for the first reading, I'll be using the Somnia Tarot. For the second, I'll be using the White Fly Tarot. For the third, the Dream Visions Tarot. And for the fourth, the Rebirth Tarot. So hopefully one of the tarots, one of the images or the number, whatever you use to go to the reading will draw you to the right reading. Or readings, by all means, look at more than one. You might have an amalgam of messages across the 2 readings. But we're going to have a look at the map of your Rahu drive, quest, in relation also to the renunciation side of K2 or the South Node, and the bridge between that. And then we're going to look at it in the real world with the tarot, and then we're going to look at some spiritual advice for you to get the best chance to attain that Holy Grail goal for yourself in your life. So when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So in this is K2, so the dragon's tail, the spiritual and part that you're moving away from, renouncing or needing to reconfigure to get towards Rahu, the dragon's head, which is the hunger and the quest. So what we have here, I think, is a journey towards acceptance in some form of polite and highly valued society. Because sitting over here around Rahu, we have courtesy. The lay vampire oracle, I use that for a kind of distillation of hunger. And we have courtesy, thoughtful, polite, good manners. And then we have the threads of fate with ascension. This suggests to me yearning for a society, a culture, a community that is accepting and has rules that are clear, and that you find polite and accepting of you, because you don't necessarily you have a lot of internal power with Lilith here, but you are not necessarily someone who wants to push yourself forward. In fact, with this energy over here, the energy you're moving away from, it suggests to me that in this life, or possibly in others, you have potentially suffered for being very different, being very revolutionary, being very unique. You were probably equally suffered and were admired for it. And so it may well have been a quest that you followed in a previous life. It may be that what's happened here is it's almost switched energies, because the energy around K2 is around uniqueness. The Shakopart of Seahorse is a very gentle, and so that is what is similar here. Gentle sort of energy, but highly, highly unique, with a revolutionary sort of energy here, which is change, which is difference, which is leading out, and with, I think, the capacity to be both admired and admiring. Even in this life, I think you're likely to be very attractive. very much someone that people will admire. You may in fact get the admiration and the interest of a lot of people that you don't feel connected to and you don't want it from. That what is unique or different about you is not being fully recognized by being included in whatever area in the life you're hungering to be in. One that can recognize the depth of your power, but is not requiring you to be really obvious about it. It's almost like the energy that is easier for you that you are trying to renounce is people seeing you as somebody to follow, someone to admire, somebody to give them the sort of sense of how it is to be different and so forth. Whereas you are actually hungering to move to a higher level where you're accepted and where your power is not having to be as much on display. So this suggests to me that in this life, the quest is about finding the real tribe, but one that doesn't require you to be a leader. And what you're announcing is a natural leadership. So you're looking for something at a higher order of spiritual development, I think, a higher order of belonging, literally to a sense. Some of you may, in fact, move away from individual relationships towards spiritual and mystical relationships. That's a possibility with this. So you're moving away from the love cycle that comes from being recognized for what is new and different in you into something where it is merging more with the one. So on a very, very deep spiritual level, you may be seeking divine union, and it could be in a twin flame, but I'm actually thinking here more like as a mystic would seek it. But you know that you have an enormous amount of power. And that's partly what your issue is, I think, that there is a part of you that wants to merge in with the all and cease to be, in a way, or cease to be so strong. But this energy is there, and Lilith in her own way, that's a very good example of that archetype. Lilith was the first woman, but she was shunned in the end in favour of Eve, and she has always been, in a sense, an outcast. So you are trying to not be an outcast in some way, probably triggered by being very different, being very individual. So there's something in that space for you. There were two other cards under the Ace of Cups, which are meant to be a bridge between these two, to give us our first idea about how you would go about heading towards this quest. Okay, so I think it is also showing us a bit more about the challenge involved here. That to get to your quest requires bravery, requires a warrior side. It requires the revolutionary energy that is in K2 for you or in your South Node. So you do need to be accessing that, but you also need to be sure that in doing whatever you do and taking that fight, that you don't lose out on this sense, like you don't give up too much to be accepted in this other space, and that you don't also lose, I think, the gentleness of here, because you want the courtesy and you want the spiritual ascension. So for you, you need to fight on one level in with relationships and so forth. You are seen as very unique, very different. To belong where you want to belong in the world, and this might be because of a relationship that's there, someone you've fallen in love with, but it could also just be wanting to be in a particular workplace or a particular social group or whatever. You need to be able to fight for your space there to show that you are ready for it, but you have to make sure that in doing it you don't give away too much of your own power, that you don't end up being Lilith over here, that you don't equally trade some of the innocence, I think, of the maiden here. So this is all about wanting to belong in a particular social or spiritual milieu, and the struggle is the nature of you that is drawn to this is almost the opposite of how people tend to see you. You are the quirkiness, the difference of you is the challenge. So let's use the tarot to get into a bit more detail. So we firstly want to have a look at what is the quest in more detail. So I think we know that it has something to do with belonging, spiritually or socially at some level, that it is something you value in a place or with people that you value more than where you've naturally come from for some reason. And it's not to say you're wrong, but it is a quest that is hard, because to get there almost requires the energy that you're moving away from, and requires you not to be able to be the introvert over here. So let's see a little bit more detail about the quest. Then we're going to look at what are the key challenges, and what will you need to renounce to help get yourself there. So firstly, a little bit more about the quest. Okay, so the first thing that this tells me, because every single one of those cards is reversed, and that's not common, it's any more common than all of them being the right way up, is that the quest that you have, the first step of it is repressing certain things. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong to do, but it does make it the struggle. It's what makes it difficult. And part of it is coming from a very strong sense of self-critique. One of the things I think you need to ask yourself, if Rahu is really for you about finding the right place to belong, with the right people to belong, with the right spiritual connection, where your power is allowed to be without being exploited. I think that's probably it in a nutshell. You really do need to question whether you are looking in the right place, because there is a sense of self-critique. There is a sense that somehow the reason that you are moving towards that is that at some point in your life, or maybe as a pattern in your life, you felt that you haven't been accepted, haven't been seen as good enough, haven't been seen as one of the group, or whatever it might be. And that could have been in your family, it could be with friendships at school, it could be in workplaces. And there is a very strong self-critique associated with this. It's almost as though this represents you getting past the things that you debate within yourself about, and some of the differences that you have. And there is a repression, therefore, of what is unique and different about you. Now, again, no criticism meant here. If that is what you really want to do, it's something that you need to look at. But it's interesting that part of the bridging is a warrior spirit, because at the moment, intellectually, you're turning it all against yourself. The reason you're not achieving what it is that you want, or only achieving it in part, and you're always hungry for more, is that each time almost, if you got involved in a particular group that you wanted to get involved in, it would be then you needed to get to the next level within that group, because you'd still feel a bit too different, a bit unable to really be truly who you are, a little bit too below the level that you want to be at, and you would turn all of this on yourself, and it makes it difficult for you to make the decisions about, and this is where the selling out comes in, of what is worth sacrificing, what is worth letting go, and so forth. You want to be really pragmatic about this. You'd be the sort of person who would have like the 2 or 3 year plan on how to sort of move up the ladder at work, or how to move through society and so forth. And you wouldn't necessarily be bad at it. I mean, the thing about the North Node is you will get somewhere towards this. It's just that what's really driving it underneath is a hunger that can never be fully satiated. So it's important, Spirit is saying here, to understand that, and to not turn that against yourself, because part of the thing that will help you achieve what you want is actually the thing here that you're renouncing too much in a way. So it will be interesting to see when we get to that part of the reading. You are your own worst critic, really. So that's the main break for you. So let's ask a little bit more, firstly about what your key challenges are, and then what you need to renounce. So I think we're starting to see that already, but your key challenges in pursuing your particular Holy Grail, Pile 1. Okay. Partly it's just the determination to do it with the Fool card there, and being prepared to look a bit foolish, literally, or a little bit naive, or a little bit undeveloped. I think that even if it wasn't what you wanted, some of this energy around Ketu, around being the individual and being very attractive to other people, is almost a compensation prize for not fully getting where you want to get yet. So you have to be prepared to almost strip that all away and begin again, and recognize you're strong enough to do it, because you are. Even over here with the hunger that you have, we have Lilith, who is a very powerful entity, but she is an entity of hunger as well, if you think about it. So it is turning that challenge into a strength, and not turning it against yourself again. So we've got the King of Swords reversed here. So there is definitely a sense of the mind getting in the way, the mind being the main challenge, the way you look upon yourself and the way that you judge things gets in the way. It's also very possible with both the King and Queen of Swords here that either your parents or people in your environment are very critical as well. It may be that some of these groups that you want to go towards are critical in and of themselves. They may have very precise requirements and so forth. And so that may be a challenge to get them to be happy with you and your acceptance within whatever this is, and at the same time not feeling like you're selling out too much, to sort of retain your strength in the situation. You are a very strong person. And do recognise that with certain groups, again, if you've chosen perhaps a group that is not ultimately going to satiate this, but is more, it's the cool group to be in, for instance, that you will be too strong for the group. You've got to find the group that is able to meet you strength for strength. So let's also look at what you need to renounce to head towards your quest. Okay, so interestingly enough, I think that many of the people who've come here, it's almost as though being part of the social world or career world or whatever it is that you are really hungering to be part of, one of the things that has to be sacrificed for that is maybe some of the people who admire or love you at this point in time. There is definitely something over here in terms of what you would be renouncing and letting go, which is of the person who is highly attractive. And this is not to say that you suddenly have to become unattractive, but it is saying that the draw towards being attractive as almost a consolation prize for what you really want over here. You need to be able to let go some of that, and potentially more than one person around you, I think, with the Three of Cups reversed. You may find that wish to connect has worked out with a lot of sort of relationships around you. So it's like working out what is true to your heart, really, and having a different perspective of it. You also, interestingly enough, have to give up just waiting. There's an action you need to take, which I think is why we had that particular goddess energy. It is about taking action and moving forward in some way. The Hanged Man is the waiting, is the patience. It's almost as though you have to act as though you're part of this group already, or act as though it doesn't matter. And that's much more likely to take away this critique. It gives you back more power and allows an offer to join to come through. Don't underestimate yourself, but don't limit your appeal just to sort of romantic relationships and so forth, and dressing a particular way and being sort of different in that way. You actually could achieve the sort of societal or career or whatever this is, or spiritual growth that you want, but you have to let go of some of the things that are easier for you, and you have to not allow everybody else to set the timing of it in some way. Okay. So let's see what advice Spirit has for you in meeting this more. So firstly, let's get some other astrology energy around you. Then we'll have a look at some spiritual gifts that can help you. Then we're going to have a look at what it would feel like to be closer to or to attain Rahu, the goal, the quest. And we're going to finish off with a couple of questions that Spirit is suggesting you ask as you go towards your goal, your Holy Grail. So firstly, some other astrology energy that's relevant. Fixed, 11th house, South Node. Okay, so I think this is all pointing towards K2. The very fact that we have the South Node, which is effectively K2, is saying that this is probably more where you are at the moment. It's what's comfortable and so forth, but this is what you're hungering for. And it's interesting that we have the fixed signs also coming up. So that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You may well have your South Node in one of those signs, potentially. And fixed signs are consistent and they're stable and they don't waver. So they just continue with what has always been. So I think there is a message here about the fact that you could be much more comfortable around your South Node, but it's not going to satiate what you're really trying to achieve. And what you're really trying to achieve is something to do with the 11th house. So that is around social networks. It is around friendships. It is around community groups. It could be around politics. It could be around any of those sorts of things. It is the community. It is really a move or a quest from being the highly attractive, comfortable in your own skin individual and the person who is going to rise in something and fit in something and be accepted in something that you hold higher. But as I say, one of the key things that you need to do is make sure that you pick the right aspirational group, because your degree of power, you're not going to be able to have it quietly as one of the group and just be accepted if you are more powerful than they are. You need to be equally powerful. So they can't really decide whether you're there, because then the power is too much in their hands. But equally, if you are too powerful, then you're not going to be able to get the sort of polite fitting in, ascension, this is the next step, I feel comfortable, this is my new home type of energy. Okay, so let's see what spiritual gifts might be able to help you achieving this sense of community and fitting in, which I think is the key thing for you. Release and attraction. Okay, I think we could read that a couple of ways. Firstly, releasing this law of attraction that you have, you're all over that, and the kind of attraction of others and so forth. There are some people, I think, that you will need to release. You don't necessarily have to exclude them from your life, but you can't make them the center of it if you're trying to move into a different group. So there is a true release around that, and around the wish to be attractive, unique, seen, idealized and all that kind of thing. If you want to move to this next level and whatever this is, you're going to have to find more people who are like you, not better and not worse, not drawn to you like a sort of admirers and so forth, but equally not judges of you either. So you really do have to release some of that energy. Some of almost the thing that might get you there, you need to release so that you can stay there. So if you were, for instance, a social influencer drawing people in because you're highly attractive, to be at this next level and to be in a high level group in whatever that means to you, you need to renounce some of that stardom almost to become more one of a larger thing. And if this is spiritual, you need to leave behind the potentially the soul twins and the twin flames to move to the mystical and so forth. There's something about your personal attraction that you need to be able to leverage but then let go so that you can be with the people that you want to be with. Okay, so what will it feel like if you achieve, or you've got close to achieving the Holy Grail? Because I think the point is that we never fully get the Holy Grail, but what would be the feeling and energy around that? Okay, so firstly we have creativity. So there is something creative about this. It could be a creative group that you're going to try to get into. It could be a creative industry you're trying to get into. It could be moving from being extremely good as a busker to being someone who is, has a recording contract, for instance. But there's something creative and happiness in being able to create, with the sacral chakra, with citrine. And the sort of affirmations that would fit with this energy are, I create endlessly and I choose to be happy. So there is a choice here. There is definitely a choice. And it is a choice about giving up a little bit, I guess, as I say, of a stardom for an acceptance. And when we go to the throat chakra here with Angelite, that is about acceptance and wholeness. And the affirmations are, I accept what I cannot change, and I acknowledge the wholeness of my being. So you will be, one of the things I think this is saying is that once you have found the right people and the right community to be in, you will be accepted for yourself. You don't have to be more or less than what you are. You can be wholly who you are. That's how you will know. If you are feeling that you're selling out, you're feeling you're giving away power, or you're feeling that you're overwhelming people and recreating this over here, you won't have been there yet. But you'll get that acceptance and that wholeness when you find your tribe. That's what this is really about. So to finish off pile 1, I'm going to use the Stories Oracle, which has constellations in it, and they have questions. So the questions are a bit hard to read, so I will just tell you, I'll read you the questions. And they're just a couple of things that Spirit suggests to finish off you thinking about while you are on your quest towards your personal Holy Grail. So firstly, we have Taurus, and we have How does your rage imprison you? So there's something, and there is something a bit fighting here. I do think that part of this, and as I said right at the beginning of the introduction, Rahu to some degree, as the thing we're seeking, we often feel we don't quite get. So you may have felt, one of the reasons you might be keeping on trying to get this, you may have felt excluded from the groups that you wanted to be in before, and you've concentrated a lot on developing yourself as a result of that, which is great, but you're still yearning for that recognition on that level. So if you just sit in the anger about it, then you're giving the power of critique and criticism and so forth to others. So think about that. And then one more. We've got Scorpius, so Scorpio. What if the darkest and most mysterious parts of ourselves are also what makes us the most alive? That's got something to do with Lilith. So I think what this is saying is that don't lose the really deep parts of you and the powerful parts of you to fit in. Do not either submerge your light or find yourself in situations where people can't accept that degree of power, because that really mysterious part of you, that's part of what you need to find. You need to find the others who are like you, the others who can accept that to you, and not just hide it within. Be somewhere where it doesn't have to be the standout thing, but that it is accepted. So there's something also in this I'm getting as a final message, which is for some of you, this trip of acceptance is in some way to do with scorpionic type of issues. You may well have Scorpio either north or south node if this is the case, but even if you don't, it has to do with that deepest intimacy, that what it is to be really connected and to be really accepted with both our shadow and our light, and to be able to really see both our shadow and our light. So that's the core. You will know it when you're accepted and you feel whole in yourself, and you're not having to submerge who you really are at your deepest level to be accepted. So pile 1, I hope that resonated for you. I hope that does sort of stir a bit of a chord for you around what your particular quest is of your North Node. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So in this layout, that represents Ketu, so the dragon's tail, and Rahu, the dragon's head, so that being the destination, the quest that we are looking at. And what this represents, as I said in the introduction, is almost either something you're moving away from or renouncing, or need to lessen in your life to head towards Rahu and to try and satiate the hunger of Rahu. So this is really all about, it's almost the opposite of the mystic's journey, to be frank. And so whether or not you've spent a lot of your life in spiritual sort of practice or in seclusion, or not really following your heart, doing what you thought was right philosophically, legally, spiritually, all of that sort of thing, and being for others, maybe being an oracle of some sort and so forth, very, very wise. You have a lot of wisdom and a lot of oracular ability, and thinking that is the natural, sensate way to be in the world. But being alone, I think, or this may have been in a past life, and so this may be karmic stuff that is still being let go of, because in Western astrology, as I said at the beginning, to some degree the South Node is also about past karma and so forth. But the move, the hunger, is towards connection to the heart, connection to others, connection to love, while still being able to retain a degree of independence. So it's suggesting to me that many of the people who have come to this reading are people who maybe have not followed their heart, or not given up everything for love, or any of those sort of things, as they pursued what they thought was wiser and truer and more spiritually aligned, or even what was more creatively aligned in some way, that the freedom of not being tied to any particular person. But there is a hunger for the great love. There is a hunger and an understanding that, particularly as I think you are highly creative, you're highly artistic, that freedom is being translated into this sort of spiritual side of things, but it is also the thing that makes it hard to get the love. So we're seeing here that you're strongly connected to others spiritually as an empath. You're a mystic, as I say, and I think a mystic in the very traditional sense of that, in the sense of being more connected to the divine than necessarily any individual love in this life. There is a lot of wisdom to what you do. Sophia is also about wisdom, very high order connection, but that's not really what you're here to do this time around. And that's not really what you're hungering for. You are hungering to be connected to the heart more around deep love. Like, this is about eternal love, lasting commitment and so forth, while still retaining the freedom that mystical side of things had, but so that you can get more in touch with your true creativity. You've almost given that up to some degree, to be the empath, to be there for everybody else. And this is saying that you actually have a drive towards your own artistic life, your own heart, and I think a lover. So whether it's someone you've met already and you're hungering for that person, and it could be a twin flame or something like that. There's a tricky, difficult, challenging, wonderful energy, or whether it is that you're needing to find the love that is eternal but is also free like you are, and also has a spiritual connection like you do. But your hunger is all about the great love. Absolutely. And it could sublimate into a great love for creativity, art and so forth, potentially, and breaking free from spiritual traditions to be more authentic. That is another way that this could manifest. But I think for most, it's actually about a personal relationship that you're either in now and you're aware of, or you've found this pattern before, that you've drawn people in because of your great empathy and wisdom and so forth, but you haven't been able to find the great love. You've maybe appeared like the great love to many other people, but you haven't yet found that person or been able to connect with that person. Maybe even because they, like you, have a bit of a gypsy soul. So there were two other cards that were under the Ace of Cups, and they are meant to be kind of what are the bridge between these two before we go into the tarot. So we have Bust, which is about play, and we have Unleash Your Creativity. Okay. So I think this is a pretty clear message. You're kind of a bit too serious by half a lot of the time, pile two. You're very dedicated to your spiritual practice, very dedicated to doing the right thing. You feel other people's energies and emotions almost as though they were your own, and you do take a wisdom to it, but you get too serious. To get to this point where you can unleash your creativity with the artist and the gypsy soul, and therefore bring a great love in, whether it's a person or the great love for creativity and for self-expression, you need to play a bit. You need to have a bit of fun. Like, it literally could be that a very pragmatic reading of this is that if you feel like you've never found your great love, but you've been spending all your time helping everybody else out and dealing with all their problems, and it's all very serious, but you never just go out and date and have a good time, then that's kind of why this remains a really, really sort of ongoing hunger, looking for that and trying to connect to your heart. If you have put other people ahead of what you wanted to create for yourself in some way, then you haven't unleashed that side of you, which is another way that might bring the great love into your life. So I think there's a connection between your creativity and self-expression and finding the love that you are looking for, but you have tended to sacrifice that for other people. So let's have a look at the tarot. So we're going to start firstly with a little bit more information on your quest. Then we're going to ask specifically what are the challenges that you're facing at the moment with your quest, and what might you need to renounce or let go to better meet the hunger of the North Node. Okay, so this nicely sums up the energy really of what we're looking at over here, I think. Firstly, the first card we lead out with is Knight of Cups. You are very romantic. This is definitely going to be about love. And it doesn't mean, because Rahu is difficult to associate, that you wouldn't find your great love. But I feel like what it would mean is that there would often be challenges around it, and maybe you'll need to sort of like adjust yourself more, and you'll maybe need to sort of, we'll see what comes up with renouncing, but kind of let go of some of looking after everybody else to get there. And it may even be that there is something almost unattainable about the relationship in the end, but it's still a great love. So either of those things are possible. Certainly it's saying that part of the issue around it is that you are highly independent. You like to be independent. You like to be free, and you could not give that up even for the great love. So you're almost someone who, if your great love was not available in some way, like maybe it was a twin flame or something, that would almost be the way to balance this off. Or it would have to be another person who was equally a gypsy and that you could be in their company and then apart from them, and it would be fine, and fine on their perspective as well too. It's one of the reasons why it's probably tricky to find, because you have to find someone who's creatively connected to you, has that same sense of independence and so forth, that is not worried about necessarily the niceties of it. If you found your great love, it wouldn't necessarily be, oh, you have to go and get married. That in fact, that both of you might go, oh no, last thing I want to do is do that. Doesn't mean there couldn't be commitment to it. But it's a commitment of the heart, not of social niceties, and not of, I'm just going to look after, like you're not looking for the person that you have to be committed to because otherwise you'd hurt their feelings. Like you deal with people's feelings all the time. This has got to be someone who can be equally a gypsy to you, but equally connected, so that you are together in whatever way works for you because of the connection of the heart and not because of any form of promise or commitment in some way. There needs to be like a decision that is very clear, but is not necessarily about material outcomes. A lot of you, this could be, as I say, twin flame or something that is done at a long distance or something like that. And that might be part of the hunger around it, that you want it. Nothing is more important to you than love, but equally, it has to be that sort of freedom, the marriage of true hearts, not the marriage of convenience or the marriage of society or whatever. And that fits nicely with having a bit of fun and creativity, because the more that you can keep things fun and light, the more likely you are not to get into that sort of heavier end of things. But let's look at what challenges you have at the moment in this particular quest. I mean, it may well be that if you have not found the great love yet, that it's because you found approximations of it, but they've been very needy because of the energy that you so naturally sit in, that it hasn't allowed you that freedom, and it hasn't been the marriage of true hearts, of true equals. So let's see what the challenges are. Okay, there's some sort of block around your creativity for sure. And it may be part of this because the artist is there. You may find, that the sting that is there at the Rahu as opposed to in the dragon's tail may be that getting full recognition for what your creative output is difficult, that you get a bit caught up in other people's opinions and decisions around it with the Eight of Swords there, and you feel a bit trapped by that. I think you also feel a bit trapped by needing recognition. So there is a side of you that would want that to be seen as an artist, but equally you don't want to be trapped in the definitions that other people give to you. So that deep freedom and that wish not to get caught in other people's opinions are there. But I feel as though it takes some of the sort of clarification of what passion and art and creativity and even love in a passionate way would be to you. It's like you get caught in your head because I think you've been taught probably that, caring about others, looking after others, that's what you're meant to be doing. But you're actually meant to be creating. That's the real drive of your North Node. So let's ask about what you'd need to renounce to get closer to Rahu's hunger. Okay, again, it's pretty clear. You've spent a lot of time looking after the emotions of others from childhood onwards, really. You're probably the most mature person in your family, I'd say. And it's continued. And you are very wise. You brought in a lot of wisdom. But you need to renounce these sort of emotional environments that are draining you and that are often not that honest. And maybe you need to renounce any niceties you've put around things as well too. You really would go to great lengths not to hurt somebody's feelings. Like you are massively kind, which is lovely. It's lovely. But what it means is you probably put up with a lot more of this drawing your energy there that is taking it away from what you're trying to achieve and find for yourself. I'm getting that some of you will have friends around you that if you fell in love, they would almost resent it because they would think like now you're not at their beck and call. They like that. There's something a bit histrionic about some of this. And so it's really important. And part of your drive for freedom, that's part of what you need to renounce, that sort of sense of obligation to others, sort of spiritually and emotionally, because there is a degree that you are being misled, potentially even lied to, or as I say, kind of emotional blackmail. So you need to let go of all the triggers around that, because to find your creativity, to find your true artistry, to keep your freedom and to find your great love, you cannot keep getting trapped in the expectations of others who are very emotionally draining. Okay, so let's see what other astrology energy is around you that can help you pile two. Leo, Jupiter, 7th house. Okay, so first thing I'm going to say to you, that you will come very close, if not really achieve your North Node. For all that, Rahu is theoretically something that can't be satiated. I feel as though you are likely to satiate this in this life, particularly if it's around a relationship. I think you will get there. You have the benefic of Jupiter with the 7th house around relationships, with the planet being Venus, all about love, all of those sort of things. But it requires you to be a bit more like Leo, to take on your own strength and to be able to stand center stage, not to be everybody else's person, but to be center stage. It will also require you the generosity of Jupiter with the person that's the right person to be generous with, and for them to do that in return. And I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be easy, whether it's following your own creative path. You won't always, I think you'll be ultimately lucky in the relationships you have around it, but you won't always be able to get everything that you want, because that's part of the North Node. Equally with the relationship, there's probably, because of the nature of it, where I think you both need to be so similar, there will be a bit of a push-pull sometimes, but more likely than not, if you stand within your own truth in who you are and what is passionate and creative and connected to your heart through Leo, certainly have a look and see if you've got Leo strongly in your chart. If not, it may in fact be showing that's sort of something that you need to sort of really kind of the type of energy you need to sort of cultivate in yourself, almost as an art form in and of itself. But Jupiter is strong. You may have Jupiter in Leo, and that would also be a very good sign. If you had Jupiter in Leo in the 7th house, then I think it may also be a bit of a signature of the type of person who could be your great love. Okay, so let's look at some spiritual gifts that you have that can help you. Divination and knowledge. Okay, well, yeah, you have knowledge. You're the sage, you're the mystic, and you probably would be extremely good at divination, actually, because you've brought in and or developed in this life a hell of a lot of ability in that space. So divination for yourself, coming to readings like this, building on your own knowledge, all of that can help you understand this and understand why it's important to move from just being everybody else's font of all comfort and emotional warmth and stability, and create the love that you want in your life. So let's ask what it's going to feel like if you achieve your Holy Grail. Now this is interesting because we have third eye chakra, which connects to all that sort of sense of spiritual growth and understanding and so forth. And we also have over in the throat chakra, divinity and wisdom. So I think the first thing it's saying is that you will not be losing this wisdom. You will just be channeling it in and communicating it in a way that is more wise for you and that allows you to relax and be calm and have a bit of fun and all of that kind of thing. So around the communication side of it, the affirmations are, I see divinity in all things. Well, you already do. So I think this is why I'm getting a sense that this pile is more likely to get closer to getting their quest than many will, because I think you do have this foundation here. And it says, I am wise beyond my years, and you are. You absolutely are. But that doesn't mean you have to be at everybody's beck and call. Over in the third eye chakra, which is all about telepathic, empathic things, and I'm getting that's going to potentially bring in the person for you as well. So you're likely to come across them in the 5D before the 3D. The affirmations are, I remain calm in times of stress, and I take time for self-care and relaxation. So yes, you need to, because you take on the stress of a lot of other people. And it may be, as you renounce some of this, you start to realize that you haven't been treated fairly. So that in itself can be a little bit stressful. So you need to be able to let go of that energy and not be too hard on yourself for it. It came from your kindness, not from a lack of wisdom. All right, so to finish off, I'm going to use the Stories Oracle, which has constellations in it, and it has questions. So I'm asking Spirit to find 2 questions that they want you to think about when you're heading towards your quest, your Holy Grail. So firstly, we have Taurus. That's funny, it came up for one of the others. And Taurus says, how does your rage imprison you? So I think this is part of this process. I think you're going to realize when you really start to think about why it is that you aren't achieving the great love, the great creative outlets, the great freedoms, that it's because you've given too much to people, not all of whom deserve that amount of support from you. But don't let it imprison you. Don't start to sort of second guess yourself. Just use it as further wisdom to move forward. And then the other card is Pavo. What if you had to close your eyes to see clearly? Okay. So I think that's got a double message for you. I think the first one is close your eyes to some of the pain and empathy and so forth that you pick up from everybody else. But I think it's also potentially connecting to this great love or creative dream, or both. Closing your eyes, going within. That you're going to, as I say, particularly with a great love, you're going to pick it up first telepathically in the 5D before you meet this person, I think. And if you've met somebody, then you're connecting on that level. Don't underestimate that, and don't underestimate the importance of it. It may be one of the things that makes it possible to be both together and free at the same time. So I hope that that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe, and if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these cards here represent Ketu, so the south node, and these cards represent Rahu, so the north node, or the quest that you are heading towards, that you hunger towards. We will look at some other cards for what is the bridge between them before going into the tarot. The interesting thing for you is there's quite a strong synergy between the area and energy that you almost move away from and renounce and where you're going to. It's what we're looking at is not so much a dramatic opposition as you would normally expect with the south node and the north node, but more an element of degree. And why I say that is that in terms of the archetypes, we have a performer and Aries here in what is sort of natural to you, what you've done many times before, probably in other lives or earlier in this life. So you are a natural performer. You're very ambitious with that. You're very vibrant, very charismatic. You know how to play, have fun. And there is sort of both a masculine and a feminine element to you. You're very balanced on that sort of level, and you respond and can relate to all people because of that. So you're the natural performer, you're the natural person who people will pay attention to, who will watch, who will listen, all of that kind of thing. What you're developing into, though, is that there's a side of that where that's fun and easy and you love it and it's great, and there's nothing actually really wrong with it. You are bringing in a lot of real skills there, but you're developing towards someone who wants to take this to a higher spiritual level, who wants it to have a purpose. You want to be able to speak truth, not just sing beautifully or have people sort of find you witty and funny and entertaining and playful. You want to be able to really use this to show the natural part of you, who you really are, the individual that you really are, and to get in touch with your higher self and be recognized for that. So it feels as though you have been in your life and maybe in other lives recognized for being the natural entertainer, the natural performer, the natural sort of energy of sort of light and joy and playfulness, and sort of the divine feminine as well as I say, the divine masculine as well, very balanced sort of energy, but more on a kind of having a good time, let's just all enjoy the world type of feeling. And you hunger for something so much more. because you know underneath there is so much more. Your higher self is calling you towards speaking a truth, taking an idea, shifting things spiritually, and you are meant to be on center stage with this. You know you're meant to be on center stage, but it feels almost as though you are naturally able to command attention with your charisma. You haven't yet fully got everybody seeing what you have to offer on that kind of higher self level. It's part of the tension for you, I think, is in being taken as seriously as you would like to be taken without losing any of the charisma. And I don't think you would lose the charisma, but this is the challenge. It's like it's like great comedians, actually. A lot of the time people just take them as being really funny and entertaining, but often if you really look at what they're saying, it's very wise, it's very deep. It's sort of like the difference between being I'm just trying to think of a fairly light sort of humorous sort of person, a Will Ferrell or an Adam Sandler or whatever, and being a George Carlin, if that makes sense, if you know sort of the differences in sort of nuance, the difference between being a sort of a playful performer and being a satirist or something like that. And that's not to say you have to be a comedian. I'm just trying to give you the sense I have here of the hunger of there is something much greater and deeper for you that is really real to you, and really you want to be able to be really open and true about who you are. No artifice. There's a kind of a sense of fun and artifice about this. This is peeling away all the layers, being really true to yourself and taking center stage. Okay, so let's have a look at what the bridge is between the playful person and the really deep, authentic, individual person who is a bit of an archetype for others. So we have Baba Yaga. So we've got authenticity again. This is all about you really being able to use these skills to be as authentic as possible. And the healing is around family and tribe. Okay, so I would say that many of you are very different to your family and so forth. Many of you, to really be who you want to be, need to find the new family and the new tribe, because you've kind of sublimated some of this really powerful energy and this hunger into being amusing and fun, but you need to become more authentic to find that, and you need to find the right people who can accept you, because you are meant to be, as I say, on centre stage. You are meant to bring a truth and a depth to things that you haven't really yet had the opportunity to have, or in the context of this reading, you may have had some opportunities, but it hasn't fully got to where you want it to yet. It hasn't fully, you've had enough maybe to get the taste of it, to get the hunger of it, but not yet really to have got the stage that is large enough, the platform that is large enough in whatever way. So let's ask the tarot for a bit more information about where you are on the quest right now, and then we're going to ask about challenges and what you need to renounce. So firstly, where are you right now in relation to your quest? Okay, we've got all of the cards reversed, which suggests to me that you are not yet really being able to fully blossom into what this is. That some of that is repressed at the moment for various reasons. I think some of it is that finding your people with the Three of Wands reversed is proving difficult. I think many of you have been in workplaces or study or something like that it's just been a bit too conventional for you. You are unconventional and you are needing to do something with that, but there's a little bit of fear associated with it. A little bit of, will I be understood, I think, as much as anything else. You have time to make those decisions and to work out where to put it. I feel like it's saying you can keep people entertained, you can keep the momentum going while you're working this stuff out, because there is something that you're meant to create, something very real, something very material. So it could be a different way of looking at things. It could be a therapy. It could be a show on the stage. It could be a movie. There's something, but it's very material, but it hasn't yet been born. You are still in the process of sorting it out, and there is a little bit of fear around it for you. And I think it's about differences of opinion, because the Six reverse is a bit like a shadow of the Five of Swords upright. There's argument in it and so forth. We want to move to the Six of Swords the right way up, where there is sort of like a real destination in mind and you can see your way clearly. But you're still working out what isn't right for you, and a lot of that is about things that are too conventional. Okay, let's have a look at what the key challenges are for you at the moment. I think we've got a little bit of information on that already, but let's see what else Spirit wants to tell us. Okay. So really, this is down to your courage at this point. You know that the moment, as I say, you can really capture and enrapture a room and all that kind of thing. That's a given. You're able to do that. But you also know there's far more to you. With the Queen of Wands reversed, there's far more that you haven't really shown yet. And some of it is about whether or not it'll be accepted by other people, potentially people who are close to you, people that you have close relationships with. It may be with these two cards together, with both Death reversed and Two of Cups potentially clarifying it, it may be saying that there are some relationships you'll need to let go of to be able to be truly who you are. And that will take a little bit of courage. But the Queen of Wands wants to turn around, just like the Six of Swords wants to. You will have more peace of mind when you are true to your full glorious self, basically, when you feel more comfortable with that. So your obstacle is really more about the kind of fear of really showing who you are and whether that's going to cost you certain relationships or friendships, I would say. So what do you need to renounce to make that transition easier? Okay, so again, we've got Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords both reversed. This is both saying that something less conventional is necessary, but it's a balance. It's the balance of the two, because the Knight of Pentacles is too conventional and the Knight of Swords, when it's right way up, can be too unconventional. Then we have the Seven of Wands there. I think it's pick up the mercurial side of the Knight of Swords, but renounce that which is just pragmatic and business oriented. It's almost like there's a little bit of an issue around money for you, but money will look after itself if you get that balance right and you're brave to be true to who you are. You need to let go of what is not emotionally nourishing to you anymore. Like you enjoyed this, but it's not really giving you what you hunger for. And you need to find the right people to connect to. So I think this is why the bridge was family and tribe. It's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be your family, though, if you aren't feeling disengaged from your family, it may be saying they are the ones to connect to get the resourcing and support. But I think for many of you, it's about finding your tribe, finding the people who will accept you, and I think accept you as a leader, because I think you're meant to be a leader. Okay, so let's have a look at some other astrology information for you. Full moon, north node, so very much around this, and cardinal. Okay. So the full moon is about the harvest, reaping what you've sown and so forth. I think part of that is saying that take responsibility for where you are at the moment. If you're feeling frustrated, it might be because you've stayed in the spot that is feeling comfortable rather than really stepping into all that you could be. You are meant to be following your north node, definitely. And you're meant to be initiating something new, initiating something that is more natural to you with a cardinal sign, because cardinal signs are initiators, they're assertive, they're self-starters, they're the leaders, as I said. So it's Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn. So it's kind of saying keep the Aries energy of your south node, but bring it into how you're going to bring something new in that's more authentic and so forth. Transport in the Aries energy of Ketu to Rahu. Transport that bit in. The rest of it, the fun bit, is kind of done. The serious and earnest and getting on and really establishing yourself, it's time to start doing that. Okay, let's see what spiritual gifts can help you with that. Nature and persuasion. Okay. So I think this is saying your nature will help you do it. It is so natural to you. And the more that you are aligning with your nature, the more authentic you become, the more natural you become and all that sort of thing. It may also say that being in nature might help you, or natural sort of mystical arts might be helpful in some way. persuasion, your powers of persuasion. Well, your powers of persuasion are pretty full on. So I think that's just really tipping the hat to the fact that that kind of performer energy in you, that playful energy in you, can also be highly persuasive once it's married to authenticity. You put those two things together and it's an unbeatable combination. So let's ask what it'll feel like for you as you get closer to or start to achieve your Holy Grail, pile 3. Okay, so it's all about connection. Third eye chakra is connection to the divine, but it's also connection to others through things like telepathy, finding your tribe and so forth. And it is about, with blue calcinity, about self-perception and lightheartedness. So when you find the right people to connect to who really accept your authenticity, that feeling of self-perception comes back, and you can have the serious stuff with also still some of the play here. And the affirmations are, I change my perspective to increase my understanding. So that is, I think, your perspective on yourself and where your strengths are. And I sometimes allow myself to be carefree. And that's fine too. I think this is saying you don't have to completely renounce what's in the South Node here to get to that. It's just that you need to take some of that energy and transmute it into something that is closer to your heart. And so therefore we have the heart chakra. And we get friendship and loyalty. So again, you'll find your tribe with the emerald crystal there. And the affirmations are, I seek out healthy friendships and I am loyal to myself and others. So when you find the right people who can accept you rather than those who just like to be entertained by you, then you're going to be getting closer to it. So to finish off, I want to use the Stories Oracle, which has constellations and questions. And so I want to ask Spirit to give us 2 questions that would help you to consider as you head towards your Holy Grail. So firstly, we have Ophichus. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. But the question is, what if just because you can doesn't mean you should? And that's it. This is it. You could be here in your South Node, entertaining people, having fun, getting on with things, having your ambitions, keeping everything in balance forever. But that's not really what you should do if you're heading towards this. This is taking some of that energy, but bringing it more towards what you truly are. And then the second question for you, pile 3, is from the constellation Ara. And the question is, what if you had the power to hurt but healed instead? Oh, isn't that interesting? I think that's a couple of things for you. One is healing yourself and being more authentic. Don't worry about hurting others and hurting yourself, because the more authentic you are, the more you heal yourself. But I think you'll heal others. I think there's something in this. I think something about what you really hunger for in terms of authenticity and a little bit more sort of gravitas to go along with your charisma is about bringing something that heals others. Because you have all of that there, but it's not really been filtered through who you truly are yet and your higher self. So if you do it, you're not going to hurt people, yourself or others. You're going to help, but you do need to take that step. You do need to go towards more and more authenticity within yourself and claim your center stage position, because people need to see you. People need to see you, pile 3. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you enjoyed the reading, and I hope that it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So these cards here represent Ketu, the South Node or Dragon's Tail, and these represent Rahu, so the quest, the North Node, what you are heading towards, what you are seeking in this life most of all. And I think that this is all to do with self-expression, possibly around who you are at a very innate level, potentially in terms of sensuality, your sort of gender identity, your how you want to be in the world, the balance of masculine and feminine and so forth, to the point of I can be absolutely who I am and I can absolutely enjoy life and all that life has to offer. Because it looks as though what may be the case, maybe from a past life. I think this is very much saying that the energies around your South Node come from a past life. I think you were in a past life. You represented maybe a very versatile way of being in that sense, sort of androgynous in some way. You may have been in one or more of the spiritual traditions that favoured androgyny or the balance of masculine and feminine energies, or you may have liked to move between those, and you may in fact have brought that into this life. You may feel quite gender fluid. If that's not as literal as that, then there is a lot about the balance between what we would call the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies, and the capacity to be versatile with that, and very likely to be very beautiful, picking up almost the most beautiful aspects of both the male and female form in some way. I'm getting that some of you in this life, it could be already manifested in being in the fashion industry or being a model or working in art or something like that. There's sort of somewhere where this past life where I think you kind of straddled the two things in one form or another, spiritually, in terms of your identity, in terms of relationships that you had, whatever it is, that versatility. That made you very much a sort of icon, very much sort of someone who was seen, and I think you probably have brought that beauty as balance in. Some people say that beauty is primarily symmetry, and so this would be picking up that kind of energy and some people also say that people who are born with physical beauty, that is a karmic gift. So I think many of you will have something like that, but it's almost like you could present as anything. It's almost got a kind of a David Bowie or Madonna-esque type feeling about it. That kind of could be a shapeshifter, very versatile, very very able to fit in with whatever you need to do to be the most beautiful, accepted and so forth in the world that you're in, and possibly also to bring that kind of acceptance from others. But you want more than that. You want to be able to be so authentic and so wild and live a life of passion and rebellion and wildness and creativity and the pleasures of life. I think that there is something going on in your life. What this pattern is showing us is that maybe all of this, for all that you have all that and you've brought it in from a past life, in this life at least, and possibly others, it's been held under very strict regulation. It's like either you were born into a family that didn't accept that kind of versatility and difference, or you're in a workplace that is very rigid about particular roles, or as I say, the fashion industry or something like that. Maybe you are very much meant to have a particular look or a particular way of doing things. So there's something in all of that where I think you want to break free of it. You feel, and if you were an artist, for instance, it might be that you've been very versatile in the way that you can do art. You could be very much a Renaissance person, a bit of a Leonardo da Vinci, but you still have been very much kept with what does the world tend to think of as the appropriate balance, the appropriate beauty and so forth. And you want the wild, you want the creative, you want the new, and you want security in being able to do it, because Taurus is about the good life, but it's also about security. There's a side of you that is looking for the Taurian security and material outcomes without having to lose who you are, that wildness, that difference, what makes you unique, what makes you different, and how you can express that with creativity. And so if this is around, as I say, things like gender roles and sensuality or whatever, you want to be with who you want to be with, and you want to be able to express that fully and so forth, and not be kept hemmed in. If it's around creativity, you want it to be the most pure expression of what you do. If it's around your career, you want the security and the good life and the capacity to be creative, but you also don't want to be too constrained. Possibly you would be best off running your own business. Now, the challenge you're going to have, and what I think we'll see as this comes out, is that trying to have that security and the good life at the same time as being so different and so wild, it could show where the grit that creates the pearl for the oyster is in you chasing your quest. There's something in this about whether or not you can be fully who you are and fully accepted, so that you actually have the security of life, that I think your capacity to be versatile and fit in with what people want over here has always given you. But to be truly who you are, then can you also have that sort of sense of security? So let's see what the bridge energies are between the two. So we have Sekhmet, which is reduction, And rejection, okay. So I think this is showing where the fear is to move from one to the other, where what needs to be sorted through. I think that you have twin fears moving from this comfortable space to this space of desire. One is that you could be reduced in some way, that to still get the security that you want means you need to reduce some of this in some way, or that whatever you've achieved so far, because you are so versatile and you are so attractive to other people and you can bring things into balance, could be potentially reduced in the name of the freedom that is over here. So that's a possibility. Sorry, get those in place. The other one is, I think, the issue about rejection. If you were really able to show truly who you were, would you be rejected? Would you not be able to get the kind of relationships and so forth that you want? So I think this is very much, you are so able to fit in wherever you need to fit in. Even if you don't feel entirely at home there, other people think you're fine. Other people think you're good. And you kind of know that, and you know that you've had certain advantages because of that. And you do treasure your versatility and so forth. But your yearning is to not be constrained, to be free, but you have to be prepared for the fact that not everybody is going to accept that, and some may try to reduce that. The challenge will always be, what do you have to compromise within this energy? So let's have a look at where you're at the moment with tarot around your quest, and then we're going to have a look at the challenges that you're facing at the moment and what you might need to renounce at the moment to help yourself along. So firstly, where you are at the moment in relation to your quest to be free, wild, authentic, creative, but also secure, which is a tricky one to do, pile 4, I've got to say. Okay, so firstly, you know what it would be to be happy. You have defined that. So I think you know what this is. Whatever that represents, you know what that would look like. And there is a side of you on a material level that would know how to negotiate that, would know how to present yourself. This is this versatility, this very, very clever mind, and this capacity to bring balance. And the elegance of your arguments and your debates would be something to see, I would say. And you can create something out of that. You know that you could, but there is some fear blocking you. You're not sure that you can get all the freedom that you want because you understand the cost of balance. See, balance there is picking up Acyuta-Bhava. You are a very balanced person. The 7 of Swords, I think, is picking up the versatility, and the Page of Pentacles is probably picking up a combination of the creator and beauty, bringing things into being. But your clever mind can also tie you up. That's what it's basically saying, because you know that the balance that you've achieved so far, you're hitting for a much higher tricky balance here. You are trying to go for the mother lode, really, the capacity to be fully authentic, wild, free, creative, a primal being on every level, but also secure. How do you get that balance right? And for you, a lot of it is about working out in your head what is involved in that. And I think you're putting some brakes on yourself at the moment about that, for all that you very much want it, because you are very, very successful in how you can do the rest of it. So let's see what challenges, apart from, I think, your own limitations at this point that you're putting on it, are on you achieving that much more tricky balance that you need to satiate your Holy Grail quest, pile 4. Okay, so for many of you, you could have a challenge around a relationship. It could be that you have attracted somebody to you that is probably connected to you from past lives potentially, that is a very good connection to you, that is drawn to your balance and your beauty and your versatility and accepts many aspects of you. And there is a long-standing connection there, maybe even one that would be, marriage or moving in together or conventional in some way. So for many of you, there is a challenge because you're in a very conventional sort of relationship, even if it is a meeting of the heart and the body and the soul and all that kind of thing. but that's the potential thing you're worried about losing if you were really to be fully wild and who you were and create the kind of thing that you wanted. So I think the Taurus there is connecting to the Hierophant. It's connecting to that sense of there is stability and security to be had in a good relationship, and maybe that's what you should be hungering for rather than for this, as I say, primal force. But the primal force is still there as a hunger for you. The good relationship you're pretty good at. If it's not a relationship per se, then it is a value you're putting on relationship, family relationship, friendships and so forth. That is where stability is found, and that is why rejection is such an issue for you. You could be rejected by people that you care about if you were really truly yourself, or you feel that. So let's see what you need to renounce to get closer to what you desire. Okay, firstly, you need to renounce the need to be in control of everything. You need to renounce a bit of your own strength. You need to almost accept the vulnerability that would come in trying to get this balance right, and in trying to define better for you what is true to your heart rather than what is secure for your heart. So there's a journey here. We've got the Page of Pentacles, which is like material, solid, grounded, with the Ten of Cups. But then we have the Page of Cups, which is looking and yearning for what is true to the heart. And some of what you need to renounce is some of the things that you have in place in your life at the moment, whether it be friendships, whether it be sort of career options, whether it be study, it could be anything. There is a material cost to being and achieving what you need here, or what you want to achieve. It doesn't mean that it's not possible to achieve, but you need to be prepared to be vulnerable and to be more open about what you really want in your heart. And if that means some of the foundations, friendships and stuff in your life move away, that's probably going to be necessary to find the right ones to come in. So it's not an easy energy to be pursuing. It's amazingly powerful energy to be pursuing. I wouldn't be surprised if your North Node was in Scorpio, actually, but it doesn't have to be, but it has a sort of a Scorpio feeling to it. Or maybe Sagittarius, that's very passionate and very wild and very independent as well. But you don't have to have that, but it's that kind of energy, I think. So let's see what other astrology energy is around you that could be helpful or give more information on your quest. 6th house, waxing crescent, Pluto. Well, Pluto also makes me think of Scorpio, the ruler Scorpio. There's something very plutonic about you. That's partly what this wild energy is. And you definitely need to be able to accept that side of yourself and the transformations that may cause in your life. And Taurus would find that a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. But your tension is not so much between your South Node and your North Node. It's between two equally desired parts of your Holy Grail. And Pluto, the capacity to transform and the understanding that you can transform a number of times, you can recalibrate, and to use Pluto really well would be helpful there. Waxing crescent moon says set your intention. So really start to think about this, really start to work out what it is, what would that look like. The 6th house suggests that for many of you, this is going to be worked out in your career in some way. So it's likely to be something creative in your career, something very different or unusual. For some, it will be in a love relationship, I think, but I think for many of you, it is about your material outcomes and your creativity and being very unusual. If you can think about how that can be of service to others, because in a way, I think the brilliance you have over here that you've developed around your versatility and your balance was a real understanding of others and of what other people found attractive and what they needed and so forth, and a lot of wisdom from past lives. So I think there's a key to that. It's understanding how to make your wish for sort of passion and wildness and change and rebellion and change somehow serve not only your security and your happiness in life, but the happiness of others through something creative. Okay, so let's see what spiritual gifts could help you. Vanish, and cleanse. Okay. So I think this is about really thinking through who are the right people to be around you, what are the right environments to be in, cleansing your intention, cleansing the environment you're in, making sure that it's pure and you're very clear about what you want to do. And if there are people who are trying to constrain what you're doing, then banish those energies. You don't have to be versatile to meet everybody else's requirements, because if you do that, you're never going to get to this sort of Plutonian, wild, rebellious change agent energy that you are seeking. So what will it feel like if you start to get close to achieving your quest? Pile 4. The crown chakra and the solar plexus. Okay, so the crown chakra is definitely connecting to your spiritual side and probably connecting to what you learned in past lives. With the moonstone, it's about travel and astuteness. So you may need to travel, change where you live, change where you work, or move around a lot to be able to create this sense of wildness and freedom that you want. And I guess the balance of travel and astuteness, the astuteness is to know how to also have the home base to come to. The affirmations for the moonstone here are, I travel astrally in my dreams, so that certainly could be connecting to others like yourself, and I choose to work astutely. So there's something about work. This is something about your career. And then solar plexus chakra, which is about your power in the world, and who you really are, that we have harmony and optimism. So you will know that you're achieving your goal when you have harmonized those elements within yourself and you've found a sense of stability with others. With yellow fluorite, the affirmations are, I am in harmony with nature, so with your own nature, I think, and I choose to have an optimistic outlook. So not thinking you can't have those. It's a difficult balance, pile 4, but it's not an unachievable one. And I do think creativity, service to others, doing it in your career is somehow the way to channel that drive, that hunger for change and transformation and growth and all of those sort of things and creativity, without losing the equal hunger that you have to feel stable and secure while you're doing it. Okay, so to finish off, I'm just going to draw a couple of cards from the Stories Oracle, which is an oracle that has different constellations, and with each constellation is a question. The questions are a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to read them out before I lay each down. So the first question that Spirit would suggest you ask yourself is from the constellation Centaurus, and it is, what if you spent your life on something that will outlast it? And I think it's interesting, Centaurus, I mean that's the centaur, but we also have Taurus as part of it. Maybe there's a clue here, powerful. Maybe the lasting thing that you want to create doesn't have to be the experience you have all the time in life. As long as you feel that you're secure enough that you can have a roof over your head, you can feed yourself, you can have a nice life. Maybe the real security is the change that you bring that is a legacy. So maybe that's the way to balance those things. Okay, and then one other question for you from the Oracle to finish the reading. We have Hydra. Are you fighting the monster in front of you or inside you? Yeah, and I think that's really just picking up that your battle to get to your Holy Grail is the balance within yourself. Remember that you have a real capacity for balance. Remember that you're versatile. Remember that you know how to make things beautiful, which fits with the sort of Taurian energy. You really do have in your kit bag what you need, but you need to understand that. If you go too far towards the Taurian side, you will always feel that you've cheated yourself of the change that you could have brought in. If you go too far into the change, you could feel that you've lost your sort of bearings and so forth. That balance is within you. The good news about that is, although it's a very tricky balance because it's two almost opposing forces that are part of your hunger, if you can balance those, if you can, using the skill that you have, then you should be able to achieve your Holy Grail. And part of it may be about what you do for others that lives on beyond you and creates that sense of the good life and a better life for other people as well. So I hope that that resonates for you, pile 4, and I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share about what you think of this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.